In this video, I want to do a real quick example Python program showing how to make comments, showing how to display something to the display console, getting user input, and also an example of using a variable. So the intention here is just for you to see a Python program. All of these things are things that we'll cover later on, but this will just give you a quick overview of what a Python program looks like, and we'll give you kind of a framework that you can work to build your own programs. So here's our example program, and you'll notice that there's 4 lines in total. The first line is a comment. Notice it starts with a hash or a number symbol or a pound symbol. That indicates that everything following that on the line is a comment. You can start a comment after code. In this case, we've started it at the beginning of the line, so the entire line is a comment. Comments are ignored when the program is run, so you can use comments to explain your code. Now, typically you don't want to say something simple like add 1 to X or print hello world. In those cases, it's self-explanatory what the code does, so you don't have to write a comment. You want to use comments for things to explain overall what you're trying to do with maybe several lines of code, or if there's a tricky line of code that you're concerned that maybe if you come back to that code later, you may not understand what you were thinking. That's where you want to use your comments. The next line is an output statement. You can think of that as you're talking to the user. So when you print something, you'll notice you have parentheses, and then inside is a string. A string is a sequence of characters enclosed in double quotes. So whatever you put in parentheses will get printed or displayed to the output console. So if you're using an IDE, typically that'll open up in a separate window or part of the window. If you're actually running it at a command line, it'll just spit the output out immediately. It just depends. And I'll show an example of both of those once we run the program. Now the third line is a little more complicated. First, we're getting some input using the input statement. And you'll notice it looks just like print because when you get input, you can also give what's called a prompt. So this input statement will actually display to the console what's your name so that the user knows what we're expecting them to input. Once this line of code is executed, execution will pause, waiting for the user to type something in. So you'll type a response and then press the enter key. Now here, in this line, we're also introducing a variable called name. And a variable, you can think of it as a box to put something in to use later. So here, once you input your name, Python will store whatever you entered in that variable name, and you can use it later. In fact, we'll use it in the next line. And then finally, we're going to have another output statement. We're talking to the user. However, this is a special kind of string called an F string. And F strings are in double quotes, but they have an F character before the first double quote. And they allow you to put variable names inside braces. And when you run this code, instead of saying name in braces, it will actually print the value that's stored in the variable name. Now these can be a little dangerous, so you want to be careful using them, but for quick and dirty programs like this, or for printing out just a variable name, there's nothing to be too concerned with here. So now that we've walked through the program, let's actually see it run. So here I have my Python program loaded in Visual Studio Code. I also have the Python extension for VS Code installed, so I can just press this play button here, and that'll run my program in the output console here at the bottom. So you see that it executes the first line, prints hello AI students, and then it says what's your name. That's the input statement, so it's waiting for me to type my name. So I'll do that, and then when I press enter, it executes the last print statement and the program executes. Another way that I can run the program is to run it directly using an interpreter in a terminal. So in this case, I'm using Windows Subsystem for Linux. I have an Ubuntu terminal open. The same thing would work with the Windows command prompt, the Mac OS terminal, and Linux. Any of those would work. And here I just say Python, and then give it the name of the file. And when I do that, you'll see it's saying, hello AI students, what's your name? And then it says, welcome to programming. So that's just another way you can run it. Either of those work. It's really just a matter of preference. It's good to be flexible and be able to do both, but working just in the IDE is fine once you're getting started. However, once you get more advanced, you may want to start learning how to use the terminal as well, because it tends to be a little more powerful if you really know how to use the terminal. But again, it's a personal preference, and both work perfectly well. There's plenty of programmers who don't use one or the other, and there's plenty of programmers who use both. So that's a quick introduction to what Python code looks like, and the rest of the semester we'll spend diving into Python and learning more about how to write more advanced programs.